Hi there. Welcome to Poemalogues. My name is Dasha Kelly Hamilton, and I am the Poet Laureate for the city of Milwaukee and for the state of Wisconsin. And Poemalogues is our opportunity to have a conversation about life in between the lines. This is not going to be an academic review of poetry, literary works necessarily, looking through all of the rhyming schemes. No, it's a way to enter a conversation with the new and some unfamiliar friends using poetry as a way to get us there. So we're going with a couple of new themes this season. Welcome to season 2, by the way. And this season, we're going to be talking about justice, legacy, wonder, and joy. And it's inviting people from across the city and folks that I've had a chance to have relationships with and work with across the country. And we all have some way, somehow, a poem in common. So we'll have a chance to meet a lot of new friends. And Today, this episode, our guest hails from our favorite suburb, my new favorite suburb, all the way from Anchorage, Alaska. So I am excited to have a conversation today about justice with one of our, I think they're Gen Glass, perhaps, but this is someone who's got some new wisdom. We're going to talk about her experience and her thoughts about justice. So I have a piece that I found as well, and I'm looking forward to sharing it towards the end. And it's more of where justice has taken cliche stories. So the celebration of the emotion of justice is one thing, like everyone tweeting out MLK quotes or referencing their marches from the 60s to talk about social justice work happening now. I understand it's emotion, it's history, and it's relevant, and we need to keep talking about it. So the piece that I found reminds us that there are some really complicated histories inside of all of that emotion and patriotism and stories that we can't forget. But I'll get to that poem later. I'd rather spend more of our time listening to this young phenom talk about her experience. So please welcome to our screen stage, Miss Kimana Hamilton. Hello, Miss Lady. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Well, the thing about I'm okay, I'm smiling right now. Okay is honest, and it's better than bad. So thank you for taking out time to be with us in a moment when things are okay. How do you know when things are great? Like, how do you feel when you know between okay and great? What's that for you?
When I can go to school. I like going to school, so
That's fair. That's fair. Oh my goodness, the days when your days were defined by school being in and being out. Look, I'm looking up. It's been a few minutes. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. So I already have a chance to love you with my whole heart already. So tell the good people, who are you? Give us your whole life story in like 2 minutes.
My name is Kimana. I'm 14 and I live in Anchorage, Alaska. I guess my childhood included a lot of discrimination, especially because I went to an elementary school that had majority, like, not people like me. So I was probably one of like 7 people of color in my school, in a school with like 600 people. So that was hard, but I didn't really notice it until like 5th grade, because that's when a lot of it started, where like people noticed that I was different. Like, they noticed it obviously before, but they started commenting on it, I guess, in 5th grade and then so on. But it got better because I went to Baggage Middle School, where there's like a good amount of each race in the school. So nobody's like necessarily different than anybody else. So yes.
That's a big deal.
Yes.
Well, Especially, I'm curious when your classmates got to the point where they felt comfortable commenting. So all of you were noticing, like you said, well, you didn't notice it, but now all of a sudden these differences, in addition to everything else you're figuring out at that age, how did you get through that?
Well, making friends with people that were like me helped, because I feel like I could talk to people that were like me about it. So that was really helpful, having friends that were like me to talk about it with.
Man, what kind of advice did you give each other? Because if they're friends like you, then they're not having your experience, but they're having a similar experience. So what advice did you give each other?
Well, we're gonna be this way till we take our last breath. So, I mean, it's not something you want to get used to necessarily, but it's something you're gonna have to get used to. So, just don't let it bother you too much, because it's just gonna be your life till you die. So, yes,
very true. And I'm smiling and I'm nodding because I can absolutely relate. So even though it's been a few minutes since I've been a 14-year-old freshman in high school, I also had my school experience was typically being, I like to say the ambassador in a class. So like my graduating class in high school, there were 117 in my high school graduating class. So small, right? And 4 of us were Black. Yes. So I completely understand what you mean, where you get up and go to bed and this is going to be what you're wrapped in for the rest of your life. But we still have to find ways to navigate those spaces so that we can still be ourselves and be safe. And sometimes the work is letting people know how they get to treat you and how they don't get to treat you. So, and it takes experience. It takes experiences to you kind of get comfortable speaking up for yourself, because you don't want to go through all day being angry, right? You don't want for it to be, this is all we have to work on and talk about, is the fact that we have these skin differences. But you put the work in now, and then you have a habit of how people will treat you. So did you have people that helped you, or teachers, or do you have an example of a time where you said, you know what, I think we're going to be okay. I can checking people. I can do that. Or getting people to help me check others. So what's a moment that you remember where you were able to be comfortable that you're going to be okay?
It wasn't in elementary school. It was in middle school, because people would like all the time call me whitewashed, and that was great. Just kidding. But but like, I mean, I understand why, because people have a certain way that they look at Black people and think how you're supposed to act, right? So I understand why they said it, but it was like when I started to make friends that I guess we're okay with it, because whitewash is bad in people's eyes. They're like, oh, you don't know what you are. And I'm like, oh, I mean, I do. So yeah, I started to make friends that were just okay with who I am and like how I act and what I look like. And
I was talking to someone just this weekend, and she and her son have been watching the Selena series and documentary. And she was describing how it struck her, for her son, who's Mexican American, he was able to relate to Selena's story, the story for Selena, where he's not Mexican enough with his peers, and he's not American enough with his classmates, and always having to figure out how to strike that balance. And and we all go through it in all different ways, but especially when you're a Black girl who talks white, or you are,
Mm-hmm.
you like anime, or you all the things that they say were, who said that there's a list of the only ways that Black people can be, that Puerto Ricans can be, that redhead freckle face white girl can be? Who said there was a list? But somewhere there's a list. So figuring out how you get to make a list your own, oh, sister girl, that's a lifetime work. But I'm glad to hear that you're already off to a good start.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you this. Tell me a little bit about how you entered this idea, this conversation of justice.
Well, the first thing I thought about when I think of justice was black paint, because like when I look at, like, if you look up justice or like Black Lives Matter, you see a lot of black paint, whether it's like on a poster or written on someone's forehead, or so that's why I thought about it. So yeah.
That's really clever. So if I'm hearing what you're saying, the word justice, the first thing that came to your mind is a visual of the protest signs. And
Yes.
what else? Oh, that's such a long list. What else? Graffiti?
Yes, graffiti.
What else would you say you've seen that black paint?
T-shirts, like it's a long list. Yeah, graffiti.
Wow. How has that been? Because I know all of the news that I gobble up, so I don't at all, and then please know I'm not at all asking this like you don't understand what you're watching on the news. But I know that you probably watch the news and listen to these stories a little bit differently, only because you have different things that are important to you on a day-to-day basis. So sometimes we get different parts of the story. So in looking at this story of this past year of where we are as a nation with Black Lives Matter, with peaceful protests, with more people speaking their truth, what does that look like for a 14-year-old high school freshman? How do you see the world going?
Well, I mean, nothing like obviously major has happened to me. Like I haven't been like stopped by the police because I can't drive, but like so it's not as like major for me. But I have had like people text me and be like, "Imagine being Black right now. Must be hard." I'm like, I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, I'm like, so okay, so but yeah, it just like doesn't seem like I haven't been shot, obviously. I haven't had something like as traumatic happen that has to other people. But yeah, but it's still like big.
It's still big. Absolutely, it's still big. So even though you haven't been pulled over for driving while Black yet, you're taking, you're taking all this information, and it either makes you ready to fight, and that's a lot of energy, or it can make you just pay attention to how all of us are working through this. Everybody's trying to make sense of, hopefully, how to make sense of stuff that's been in our face for so long. And I like your comment about, receiving these random text messages. So that's actually gives me a lot of hope. Cause I know that I got plenty of them in my text thread, in my inboxes too. And there are folks who are like, I don't know what else to do or to say, but to tell you that I'm here. And it's not for you to have to make that make sense for them, but that just says they care about you.
Right.
And so that's hopeful. And so they're like, I don't know what else to say but to tell you that I'm here. So that's a good thing. We can always go forward with good energy and a willingness to do better and a willingness to be positive. But there are too many folks who are unwilling, and they're the problem, right?
Yeah.
So, what is something that you are excited, or what do you, maybe good news or good advice that you have to give people about this idea of justice? But let's give a good word before we wrap this up.
Well, a good thing is that it's all gonna be over at some point. Who knows if it'll be tomorrow or 5 years or 10 years, but everything, Corona or Black Lives Not Mattering, but yes, it'll all be over.
You really feel there'll be an end to it?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, you said it with such confidence. I have to hold that in my chest. Going, well, I don't know. Well, maybe you're right. That is a better goal for it all being over, as opposed to can we all figure out how to suffer better? I like your plan better. Over. We're all going to figure out how to make this be over. So I would love to hear how you found your poem and if you could share it with us.
So at first I searched up, just since it reminded me of black paint, I looked up Justice Black Paint poems. But nothing interesting came up. So I went on Pinterest.
Okay.
And then
when all else fails, go to Pinterest.
Yes. And then I went to Pinterest and then I just looked up like the same thing, like justice poems. Okay. And so that's how I found this poem.
All right, let's hear it.
Oh, I lost her. Okay. So, you know what? I'm mad. I'm mad that terrible people get great opportunities. I'm mad that beautiful people hate themselves because of society. I'm mad that just because someone likes someone of their own gender, they don't deserve love. I'm mad that innocent people are hurt because someone can't control their anger. I'm mad that all people are not equal. I'm mad that people judge others before even speaking to them. I'm just mad.
Period. I'm not. Oh, thank you. You said, yeah, I put in this. I didn't find what I liked, so I found this instead. Yes, go to Pinterest, you can't find it. And you made a perfect example that it's less about, this whole moment is about really me being able to spend time with cool, dope people like yourself, and tacking on a poem at the end and reminding myself, even as someone who loves this poetry work, and folks who don't know that they love poems, it doesn't need to be the oldest, polishiest poem you learned in school. There's so many people out there scribbling, and the whole point of a poem is to find a way to capture that feeling in your chest or that memory. Someone else put some really pretty words to it. So we're just kind of spreading the love around. So I appreciate you so much taking time out of your busy schedule of figuring out how you're going to take over and rule the world. It's been a little time chatting with me about justice, and I wish you the best for this another screen semester, but I'm excited to see you take over things, you and your other peers. We're going to get all this thing worked out.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you. And so it's been really interesting to have this conversation about justice, because again, you can go into justice and thinking about it from all the things that would, should, could be done right, and civil rights and legal movements. And sometimes just claiming things that are complicated and saying true things in the truest way possible. So of all the things that we are discussing, we are fighting for, that we're imagining with justice, I found this piece that just plainly talks about justice for Black boys. It's by Toy Derricott, and it's 1941, in Knowledge of Young Boys. I knew you before you had a mother. When you were newt-like, swimming a horrible brain in water. I knew you when your connections belonged only to yourself. When you had no history to hook onto, barnacle. When you had no sustenance of metal. When you had no boat, no travel. When you stayed in the same place, treading the question. I knew you when you were all eyes and a cocktail, blank as a sky of mind, a root, neither ground nor placental, not yet. Red with the cut, nor astonished by pain, one terrible eye open in the center of your head. Tonight, turning, and the stars blinked like a cat. We swam in the last trickle of champagne. Before we knew breast milk, we shared the night of the closet, the parasitic closing on our thumbprint. We were smudged in a yellow book. Sun. We were oak without mouth, uncut. We were brave before memory. Thank you for being here and joining this Poemalogue. We'll be here every Monday having a conversation this season about joy, wonder, justice, and legacy. If you have an idea for a poem, send us an email at dashakelly.com. Check in and subscribe to the Retreat MKE so you don't miss any announcements for this and other shows we have coming up. And thank you again for everyone who's sharing your Poemalogue ideas with us. We'll see you next time.